Hi everyone, my name is Dylan, and today I'd like to show you some of the social media design trends that we expect to be big in 2022. I'll also be highlighting a selection of the graphics, templates, and fonts that we have in GoDaddy Studio to ensure that your content stays on trend this year. Right, so the first trend is retro revival. Now, retro is always on trend to some degree, considering the human tendency for nostalgia. And in chaotic times like these, it makes more sense than ever that we romanticize the safety and simplicity of the past. Now, the current retro trend that we're seeing the most is less historically specific, but tends to mix and match various elements from the 60s and 70s. And we can see that in the warm color palettes, chunky fonts, faded photo treatments, and a selection of graphics that dip into the hippie and psychedelic subcultures. So if you search for retro in our graphics library, you'll be spoiled for choice. But my top 3 picks for you to look out for are this Happiness Summer Child art set by Bilberry Create. So keep that in mind when you're searching. Another fantastic one is Retro Price Flashes by Jordan Schiffer, which are really useful if you are trying to promote sales and stay on trend at the same time. And keep an eye out for Retro Revival 70s Graphic Collection. It's a huge pack with more than 230 different graphics and patterns to help you ride the Retro Revival trend. As a spin-off of the retro revival trend, we've definitely seen a huge rise in popularity of retro psychedelic fonts. Now they're warped, wavy, chunky, but still very stylish. And even though they're drawn from an era of rebellion and experimentation, in the modern context they come across as quite sophisticated and are perfectly suited to an elegant brand with a youthful personality. We have a great selection of retro psychedelic fonts in our font library for you, but 5 that I'd like to point out for you as my personal favorites are Buster and Rosebud and Kindred, Astoria, and the last one was Mignon. So look out for those and other retro psychedelic fonts. Another very different shade of retro that's been on the rise is the Y2K Retro aesthetic, which relies heavily on pastel gradients, grids, stickers, and the old school interface of desktop computers from 20 years ago. Again, it's something of a mishmash of analog and digital elements from teenager culture at the turn of the century, and the color palette tends to hover around purples, pinks, and greenish yellows, although we have seen in the evolution of this trend a move towards more punchy primary colors too. We have loads of templates in this style, as well as some fantastic graphic packs, so look out for Y2K Glitch by Kira Mash. This has some really cool elements that you can use, as well as Y2K Digital Retro by D.D. Warren. And another really fantastic pack to look out for if you would like to get on board with this style is the Retro 95 pack by Nadine Van Driel. And you'll see this has many of those old school retro computer interface elements I was referring to. Right, now the 4th trend on my list is distorted gradients and fine details. Now, gradients have been a big trend for a couple of years now, and in their evolution we're seeing a move away from perfectly smooth gradients in fruity pastel colors towards more gritty, grainy type gradients, more distorted, and often using more subdued colors. And what we're really loving is the combination of these with some fine line details, which could either be through doodles, sketches, illustrations, or even delicate serif fonts. Now we have loads of gradient graphics that you can search for, but if you're looking to get on board with this specific trend, I'd like to point out 2 in particular that combine the gradients and the line work. There's Nostalgia Gradient Textures and Shapes, which has a huge selection of gradients and different line patterns. And the other one to look out for is called Grainy Gradients, Shapes and More, And this is a huge pack with more than 380 different elements to choose from. And again, it's a combination of gradients as well as some very beautiful detailed line illustrations. Right, now the next trend we're calling the shape of things. And this trend uses shapes as masks to create windows into a beautiful world. Now, it's often used in a very clean and minimalist style, and it tends to draw on an earthy, subdued, or pastel color palette. Aside from text, there are very rarely any other graphic elements to distract us from the main focal point, which is strong photographic imagery. So this style is really fantastic to use for showcasing your products. Again, we have loads of templates designed in this style, so all you would need to do is switch out the images with your own. But if you'd like to start designing from scratch with this trend in mind, then we have some different options for you. I would suggest checking out Organic Cutout Shapes by Simon Tobajane. And we also have The Shape of Things by Hello Mr. Frank. And for slightly more geometric treatment of the style, Modern and Corporate Cutout Shapes by Darren Seralino. So check out those. It's going to help you get on board with this really popular trend. Right, now let's take a look at the trend of Playful Classicism, which, as the name implies, is a distinctive style that emerges from a fusion of a playful and a classical aesthetic. So it's based upon a classic editorial design style, but the selection of colors and shapes infuses an energy, vibrancy, and pop sensibility into the layout. The inclusion of simple shapes and graphics definitely adds to a sense of playfulness, and often these simple shapes will be activated as text stickers, which is something of a trend unto itself right now. So if you'd like to inject some playfulness into an otherwise classic design, then stickers are definitely a fun and easy way to do this. I would suggest checking out Bold Price Flashes by Namondo Mtetwa, and there are a range of simple shapes with and without text that you can use. And very similarly, Black Friday by Hello Mr. Frank has some fantastic options for you to use. Right, now at the intersection of bold, playful, and minimal styles, we have a trend that we've identified as ultra bold two-tone. And this is defined by an absence of clutter. It's minimalism that shouts rather than whispers. And it comes to life with the playful use of colors and shapes. So it's a really fantastic design option for things like posters and flyers, where it's all important that it catches our eye. But it's also something you might want to consider when you are looking at your entire brand identity. This is definitely something that could work fantastically for that. So you can try searching bold in the template feed if you'd like to try get on board with this style. But if you'd like to try and discover your own unique color combinations to use with this trend, then definitely check out our new themes tool, which will suggest unique color combinations for you with the tap of a button. Alright, next up, the trend of honest minimalism really lends itself well to brands that want to speak openly and honestly about their product, service, or related topic. It's become very popular with brands that want to start conversations around difficult or taboo subjects like physical or mental health, personal hygiene, or finances. So the idea isn't to distract us from the topic at hand with beautiful design, but rather to engage us straightforwardly. An aura of positivity and simplicity is perhaps the first impression that designs like these make on us. Alright, another big one this year is the photo cutout collage trend, particularly in the fashion industry. It calls to mind the act of sifting through magazines with scissors in hand, cutting out images from fashion spreads for your scrapbook or journal. And to this end, it might even be considered an anti-design trend because there's often a purposeful sense of being quite amateurish, quite rough and naive. But ultimately, this translates to a sense of being quite loose and playful. So if this is a trend that resonates with you, you absolutely have to check out our new Remove Background tool, which does the job of cutting out your collage elements at the tap of a button. And then finally, we have inclusive, authentic representation, which is less of a trend and more of an ongoing evolution in which the concept of diversity is itself becoming more diverse. So moving beyond mere representation in your imagery, it's worth exploring subtle cultural nuances that resonate with your audience. Things like fonts, numbers, symbols, patterns, animals, foods, colors, they're all tied up with meaning and mean different things to different people. So getting these small details right can really help people feel seen, which will help them connect with your brand in a way that they perhaps didn't before. Now, we have so many graphics to help you out in this regard. I'm just going to point out some of my personal favorites that you should definitely keep an eye out for. For example, Body Positive Girls by Uni-Yok is a lot of fun. And then we also have things like Humanistic Fitness and Wellness Graphics by Jordan Schiffer, which is a great spectrum of human bodies to work with. Social Diversity Collection is an obvious one to check out. Our Stories by Peter Healy is one that I've particularly enjoyed. And in a similar vein, you could check out Curvy African Women. And we also have graphics for specific occasions like Pride. Celebrate Pride by Gladson de Lima is a personal favorite of mine. And again, we've got graphics for supporting Black business during Black Business Month. There's another pack in that regard by Q Doodles, which I really like. And things like Juneteenth can be commemorated with graphics that we've created specifically for that occasion. Alright, hopefully that's given you some inspiration to start designing your own on-trend content for the year ahead. You can find all of these graphics and so much more by downloading the free app on web or mobile. All the links you need are in the description below. I'll see you next time.